It's pretty deep, some of it, but there's some things they need to understand, I think. So we'll dive in and just a quick review. We'll go through this rather fast. Remember on Tuesday, Monday he put the curse on the fig tree. So Tuesday he comes back in and the tree had died. Whether the whole thing is about the faith, because he goes into faith to move mountains and things after that. Ask, believe, receive. We talked about that last time. And then the chief priest, I don't know by what authority he did things. He said, okay, I'll tell you if you'll tell me the answer to mine, John's baptism, heaven or men. Of course, they thought they had him trapped. He had them trapped, this case. And they couldn't answer, or wouldn't answer, because they would get in trouble either way. And so, three stories that followed then, and all of them are pointed toward these Jewish leaders. And first son, I will not go, but he changed his mind and did. Second son, I will not, but he did, but he did not. And of course, the lessons for these supposedly righteous leaders. And he said, John came preaching, you would not believe him, but the publicans and harlots, who you thought would not, like the first son, but did. So they repented. And so that's the point of that one. The second one's the man who built the vineyard and sent his, put the caretakers and sent his servants to get the fruit. And they beat him and killed him, and sent his son. They killed him, of course, representing the prophets and then representing Jesus. And what will the master do to the vineyard do? He'll kill all those people and give it to somebody else. Well, that's exactly what Jesus is going to do. He's going to take and give it to the Gentiles and open it up to the entire world. The third one then is the marriage feast. Feast is ready. Go call the guests. The king's prepared it. Go call the guests to come in. Everybody's got an excuse for not coming, to think about themselves. I'm going to do my business, what I want to do. And the king sent his servants out and says, seize them, kill them, and call whoever in to come. I want people at my wedding feast. Go find those who will come, either bad or good. And there was one there who was bad, didn't have a wedding garment. He came not prepared, and he was cast out and killed. And again, it's the same point to those Pharisees. And then the thing about paying tribute to Caesar, they thought they had him trapped. Herodians were there this time, who were very allegiance to Rome. And so if he goes against that, then you're not going to pay tribute to Caesar. So they think they got him trapped with that. But if he said yes, it's going to upset the Jews. If he said no, he's in trouble with Roman authorities. And he said, of course, render to Caesar what's Caesar's, to God what's God's. No. Let's see, let's skip some of these things here. Let's get into nice stuff. Okay. I mentioned last time the Google Drive stuff. I hope you had time to go look at two things there. One's an article about the Sadducees, and we'll touch on some of that. And then the other one was it's a paper there about the 7 woes that lists them out and talk about them. Say, who are the Sadducees? We haven't talked a lot about them. The might have been the Pharisees. So now we're bring the Sadducees into it. They're the elite group who wants to maintain the priesthood. In fact, the chief priests were Sadducees. So when we get to the end of this, and he puts the Sadducees in their place, we'll think about that for a minute, okay? They want to bring Hellenism, which is the Greek way of life, the Greek culture, the Greek education, the Greek athleticism. Think about the Greeks, the Olympics came, think from the Greek games earlier. They will bring all this Greek culture into the Jewish way of life. Of course, the Pharisees are very opposed to that. They are very, very strict Jews type things. And then I'm going to put both these up here because they'll get a contrast between the oral law and the written law. And that's the way they generally looked at it. The written law to the Sadducees are the first 5 books, commonly called the Torah. Now, the Torah can be used in context to be more than that, but generally the Torah is referred to as the first 5 books of the Old Testament, what we call the books of Moses. You're singing a little song about sing the books of Moses. So that's the written law, and they want a very literal, strict interpretation of that. The Sadducees do. Nothing to do with the oral law, the traditions passed down from generation to generation that the Pharisees had just built on and built on and built on to get all their hedges around the law. So a very major contrast between, again, the Pharisees and the Sadducees with this. They do not believe in an afterlife. Big point. Pharisees do. Sadducees do not. That's what will come into play with what they'll try to trap Jesus with. I got a little reading I want to do tonight. So here's the first point. Remember the book of Acts when Luke's talking about Paul's testimony before the council. It's Acts 23. Sadducees say there is no resurrection and no angel or spirit, but the Pharisees confess both resurrection and spirit life. So Josephus wrote that the Sadducees taught that the soul dies with the body, nor did they regard the observation of anything besides what the law enjoins them. Probably refers to the tradition of the elders that we reject then. So the oral testimony handed down, they would not accept. The Pharisees would not. The Sadducees would not. So do not believe in an afterlife, since it is not mentioned in the Torah, according to them. Important point. Okay. There's nothing about the afterlife in the Torah, the first 5 books. So their main focus is all the rituals associated with the temple. So where do you find all those things? In Leviticus mainly, right? In those books of Moses, when God gave the stuff at Mount Sinai and all those things there, that's where all this came from. So that's why they focus on the priesthood, the priestly order, and all the things associated with the temple worship. The Sadducees did. So now, having that little background about them, probably still on Tuesday of the week, Sadducees come to him and they've got him. Remember back to the old law, if a man marries a woman, he dies with no children, the next of kin, a brother, is to marry the wife, raise up children in the name of the dead brother. Well, first husband died, no children. Second one married the wife. He died with no children. This goes on to 7 brothers had her. Who's she going to belong to in the resurrection? And what's the first thing wrong with her question? They don't believe in the resurrection. Okay? So they're trying to trap him with what they don't believe in. So who's she going to belong to in the resurrection? We got you. There's no resurrection. So, but if you say there is, who's she going to belong to? Is the whole thing they're trying to trap him with. Jesus made a statement that is so powerful. It's got 3 main points to it. Mark 12:24. Jesus answered and said to them, "Are you therefore mistaken?" He puts it in the form of a question, but basically saying, you're mistaken. Why are you mistaken? Because you don't know the scriptures. The Torah, these 5 books that they claim to base all their stuff on. You don't know what's in the scriptures. And you don't know the power of God. So 3 key points to Jesus' answer here. You're mistaken because you don't know the scriptures. You don't recognize the power of God. Okay. Next verse. For when they rise from the dead, what did he just say? There is a resurrection, right? In his answer, when they rise from the dead, there is a resurrection. They neither marry or are given in marriage, but they're like the angels in heaven. There is no marriage in heaven. Our resurrected spiritual bodies will be similar to what the angels are. No marriage, nothing like that. But there is a resurrection. And in this point that is so strong that, well, let me back up. Go back. Romans 7:2, a woman's bound to her husband how long? As long as he lives. After that, she's not bound to him anymore, right? Because there's no marriage in the afterlife. And then think about again, too, 3 purposes of marriage on the earth. Why is there marriage? Why do we have marriage here but not in heaven? Be fruitful and multiply. As a helper, comfortable to him. And 1 Corinthians 7, to avoid sexual immorality. Any of those things apply in heaven? No. So there's no reason for marriage in heaven based on that. All right, now back to the I am thing. I don't know how you teach this to your little ones. That's just such a main point. The I am phrase occurs multiple times. We have it here. And it's very key to what Jesus is saying to them. This is the point they're missing from the law, from the Torah. What does he mean when you see I am? It means that I don't care whether you're talking about the Genesis, with Abraham or Moses or Elijah or the time of Christ or the time of John writing Revelation or today or any other time. God what? God is, okay? And you can relate it to what we think about as time. God always has been. God always will be. God is. Before it says, I am. I am always. So that concept needs to be taught to the kids. And maybe you have a better way to do it than I would. I don't know how to start. But it's a concept that God is living. Always has, always will be. No matter what time it is in our idea of thinking about time. Okay, that's key to the answer he's given here with this. So God is the God of the living. I am. All right, the living. Here we go. He said, but the next verse, we have the 24, 25, and here 26. But concerning the dead, they that rise, have you not read where? Have you not read in the book of Moses? Oh, yeah, that's our books. At the burning bush account, Jesus is very specific. Have you not read in that Torah that you believe in the burning bush account? What did it say there? It said the Torah. Remember that, okay? Let's read it. It's Exodus chapter 3. That's where it is. We'll read the first 6 verses. Verse 6 is the key. Now Moses, y'all know the story. Moses tended the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. He led the flock to the back of the desert, came to Horeb, the mountain of God. Angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire in the midst of a bush. So he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. Moses said, I will turn aside and see this great sight, while the bush is not burned. So when the Lord saw that he had turned aside to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. He said, here I am. Then he said, do not draw near this place. Take off your sandals off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground. Verse 6. Moreover, he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. What's the key? How long have Abraham and Isaac and Jacob been dead? Long time. We'll just leave it at that, okay? Years. I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. What's he saying? Are they really dead? Well, they're dead from this life, but they're living. I am the God of them. I was. Get the point? I mean, I hope everybody understands. I'm not making it very clear, maybe. He didn't say, I was the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob when they were living. No. I am the God of. So where are they? They're in their afterlife, and they're alive in that afterlife. What did the Sadducees miss? The very origin of their Jewish existence, Abraham, is still alive in the afterlife. But they don't believe in afterlife. It's right there in the book that they claim to get their teaching from. Okay? Does that make sense? So he comes back in 27, the next verse. He is not the God of the dead, but the God of the living. Who's living? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You were therefore, not this time mistaken, you were therefore greatly mistaken, he says. You like God to tell you you're mistaken? That you don't know the scriptures? Again, I don't know how you teach all this, but it's so powerful. If there is no resurrection, here's another quote I want to share with you. If there is no resurrection, the sin problem we have with sin is meaningless because both the wicked and the righteous will have the same end, annihilation. So why are we worried about sin if there's no resurrection? No matter. When we die, we're gone. Put that thought into that same process then. Okay, thoughts about that from somebody, particularly if you've got an idea about teaching it or whatever thoughts about that. Super, super powerful, and how he shut down the Sadducees.
I am the God of the living. Those that are righteous. Here's my question. In heaven, right? So Abraham, they were righteous.
Yeah.
They were judge worthy. I am even in this life, in this physical life that we're having,
Right.
he still is the I am.
Right.
And he seeks all to come to him, but he is the I am for the righteous, for those that believe,
Yep.
for those that are obedient.
Yep.
That whole other point of, I think,
Yeah. Okay. Got your point.
that might even be that might even be way too far to take for kids. But
Yeah. I don't know.
it
But
is-
yeah. Somebody
Do you
get
agree
point to
with
the
that?
kids.
Is that, am I right?
Yeah. But God is always living, no matter who you are, whether you're
Right.
in Lazarus and torment looking at Abraham's bosom, right? God is still God. God's there.
Right.
Okay. And he's the God. We're serving the God, those who are in heaven, as you say, the righteous there. Now, remember who the Sadducees are? The Sadducees, chief priest. What did Jesus just done to the Sadducees? He shut them down from their own scriptures that they push for what we believe in. Now, I know already they're planning on killing him, but what does it seem to me this will do to their desire to crank up the steam, if you will say, crank it up and really get Jesus, okay? Can you think how embarrassed they might have been if there's the people hearing him say this to them? Lesson for us to know the scriptures too. But another point you make to your kids, to your class. Okay, next part. Which is the greatest commandment? So they came, the scribes going to test Jesus. So he asked him, which is the greatest commandment? And Jesus uses two passages, Deuteronomy 6, which says you love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, mind. And then Leviticus 19, I think Steve mentioned this in a sermon recently, you should love your neighbor as yourself. So those are the two things. I'm going to skip that explain for a minute. So those are the two things. Jesus said, this is the first one and the second one's likened to it. And he got both of those from the Old Testament. Now, in no way did he disregard the Ten Commandments. He said, this is the first and this is the second. The first four of the Ten Commandments all relate to their relationship with God. Have no other graven images for me, and all those things that relate to God. And then the last six, honor your father and mother, don't kill, don't steal, don't commit adultery, all relate to our relationship with the neighbor, right? So he just summarizing, if you will, the two into these two commandments. And the scribe said, you've answered well. And he would know because he's the one who copied the law and knew the law. So he did not trap him as he was intending to with this question. So Jesus comes in then and says, ask you a question. Whose son is the Christ? Christ is the son of who? Well, their immediate answer is he's the son of David. Right answer? Yes. That's the very first verse in the New Testament, Matthew 1:1. The genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. David's even put in the front of Abraham in that genealogy. Now, all the Jews claim Abraham's their father, but in what way is Jesus claiming to be the son of David? Well, it goes back to the royal throne succession that started with David. And the genealogies, both through Joseph and Mary, trace Jesus all the way back to the throne of David. He is the son of David. And that's important if he's going to be sitting on David's throne, as they envisioned the Messiah doing. Literally, probably. So they answer, he's the son of David. So Jesus comes back and says, why then does David call him Lord? So what's the relationship here? If he's David, here's David. If Jesus is his son, where would you place the son in relation to the father? Well, normally the son would be submission to the father, right? But David calls him Lord, puts him above him. So that's the confusing part of the question he's trying to ask him. Why then does David call him Lord if he's David's son? And here's where it is. It's in Psalms 110, verse 1. It is a Psalm of David. The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool. Okay, in some of your versions of the Bible you have, the first Lord will be in small caps. L and O-R-D will be caps, a little bit smaller caps. The second one will be small letters. American Standard and some other versions will translate that first one to be Jehovah, or using the Old Testament non-vowels, Yahweh type thing. So it always refers to God the Father, Yahweh, God. The second one here is referring to Christ. But it's Jesus' whole point. The Lord, Jehovah, said to my Lord, Jesus. Where was Jesus at the time David wrote this? I am. Okay, same point, deity. Peter uses the same point in preaching to the crowd that's gathered on the day of Pentecost. He quotes the same thing. David did not ascend to the heavens. He said to himself, the Lord said to my Lord. Same quote again. He's trying to make the point that the Christ, whom you crucified, right, is David's Lord. He's that Lord we're looking for. So if he's David's son, how come he called him Lord? That's the question he's asking. What's their answer? They can't explain it. Okay. They can't explain it. So, they don't ask me more questions. But the common people, everybody said gladly. It's this Jewish elite, the leadership, where the problem comes in. Let's do it. So now we're going to start these woes, and they're mainly looking at Matthew chapter 23 is the easiest way to find all these together that we'll talk about here. And like I said, there's a sheet in that Google Drive that I gave you that it's got all these listed, and a little comment about each one of them. So, woe. Well, before we get to woes, let's talk about this first. So speaking to the multitude, the disciples, those around him, he says, the scribes and Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. And he means something by that, but it may be actually they sat in Moses' seat, a chair. This is a synagogue ruin, and this chair here, don't look very comfortable, is what they call Moses' seat in the synagogue. The one, I guess, they would do the teaching, would sit in this seat. Jesus means, of course, they sit in Moses' seat. Well, they teach the law. They're the ones who teach you. So they sit in Moses' seat. They're going to teach you the law of Moses. What they tell you, do. Okay? What they're telling you from Moses, do. But don't do what they do. Or don't look at their example. Listen to what they teach you from books of Moses. But don't do what they do. They place burdens on you that they won't do themselves. They're hypocrites. He'll call them over and over in this chapter. They make their phylacteries broad. That is this little box that they put on their head. They put scriptures in this box and want people to see that they have the scripture close to themselves always. It's a show type thing. That's what Jesus is criticizing here. And their work is all for show. And it reminds me of 1 Corinthians 13, chapter on love. Though I speak with the tongues of men and angels, have not love, come like a sounding brass, a clanging cymbal, have the gift of prophecy, understand all mysteries. You remember that passage there? That's what they are here. They're just a clanging cymbal. They're just talking as far as what they're doing. Now, that's what they teach you, but don't do what they do. Okay? Another comment. To the degree in which the scribes and Pharisees accurately upheld Moses' law, the people were to follow. According to Josephus, the Pharisees were esteemed most skillful in the exact explanation of the Mosaic law. So they could teach the law, and Jesus is telling them, listen to what they say, but they're hypocrites, don't follow what they do. They love the chief seats. They want a name for themselves. They want to be, okay, definition now. A woe in this case is a disaster or calamity. So when Jesus says, woe unto you, he's pronouncing a calamity on them because of their actions, what they're doing. Woe is to you. A calamity, a disaster because of the way they're acting. Then we call rabbi, which means my great one. They want that title. They make a show for themselves with long prayers. And he says they'll receive the greater condemnation. Why? Because they're hypocrites. Not condemned for praying. It's the long prayer to get the attention they're condemned for. And he says, don't be called rabbi. One is your teacher and you are brothers. And this point, I don't know how much to, if I'm going to run out of time, probably will. I don't know how much to put into this, but let me make a quick point about it, and then you can digest it some if you want to. This is a quote. They were little men, puffed up with their supposed learning, parading like peacocks before the admiring eyes of their followers. They inwardly gloating over the titles of honor. Such empty superficiality blinded the Pharisees, will also blind all others in places at all times who become infected with the deadly virus of human pride. That's what they had. So this writer says, needless to say, such terms as brother, evangelist, elder, minister, deacon, bishop would violate Christ's law when they are used as food for vanity. Those are all the terms. But if you're calling somebody that, and they're wanting you to call them that for pride and vanity because it puts them on a different level, that's what he's condemning here. Okay? It might be like, and I'm going to just illustrate this to kind of get the point maybe. It'd be like I call Steve, okay? But Brother Hall now is Brother Hall. Set him up a notch. And he liked that. He wouldn't, okay. He wouldn't. But I was trying to illustrate the point. If somebody wants to be called by a special name because of their pride and the position they're in, they've lost it all already, which is what the Pharisees were doing. Don't be afraid to jump in, somebody. Say, call a man Father, one's your Father, the one in heaven. He's wanting to look at not the pride the Pharisees had, but at humility is the point here. Humbly serving others. And we could just talk about that all night long. You know, all the passages in James has got all about that in other places. So just think about it. He's condemning their pride, their vain pride, and not having the humility. What describes Pharisees hypocrites multiple times in the chapter? Hypocrites. Fake. You shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. How they shut it up? You won't enter in. Why will they not enter in? Well, he's just talking about that very thing there. And you prevent others from coming in. You convert someone to make them a child of hell, not a child of God. You're blind guides, he called them. Blind guides. The blind shall lead the blind, they shall both fall into the ditch. Remember that? And he gives this thing. You say, if you swear by the temple, that means nothing. But if you swear by the gold that's on the temple, oh, that's something special. Which is greater, the temple or the gold? He says, what makes the gold special? Because it's on the temple, right? The temple is what's special, not the gold. But they had it right backwards. They would swear by the gold of the temple and expect it to be kept. Well, gold is this gold. In this case, it was applied to the temple, and the temple made it special. And then the same thing with the altar. They wouldn't swear by the altar, that means nothing. But if you swear by the sacrifice that's on the altar, then you got to keep it. Well, what was this animal before you put it on the altar? It's an animal, right? What makes it special? It's the altar. Or are you going to offer it to God? That's what makes it special. So, which is greater, the gift or the altar that makes the gift special? It's Jesus' teaching. Then he says you try to bind minute technicalities. Okay. You give a tenth of mint, as this picture here is, anise, and cumin. Little small. Okay, we got a mint plant at home, and it's gotten out of its pot, and it's on the ground now, and that stuff is like spreads like crazy. You can't kill it almost. But they would take that plant and pull off X number of leaves and count them out. Okay, I gotta give a tenth to God. Be sure to give a tenth to God. Or these little seed there. 9 for me, 1 for God. 9 for me, 1 for God. Little bitty things. What Jesus tell them? Okay. Don't leave that undone. Yeah, you're right in doing that. But what have you missed? You missed the broader picture. He says, think about justice and mercy and faith. The things you're totally ignoring because you're being so careful to keep these little things that are somewhat, in this comparison, insignificant. Keep them, you should, but don't miss the weightier matters, he calls them, of the law. Judgment, mercy, and faith. Do the little things, but don't leave the other things undone. Goes right back to this verse from Micah 6. He's showing you, O man, what is good, what does the Lord require of you, but to do justly, love mercy, to walk humbly with your God. Justice, mercy, faith. Don't forget them. They're important. They were putting them aside until they could count their little leaves out. Not something we pick and choose from. And this applies to us big time. I'm not making emphasis about that, but so many of them do. There's a book Gardner wrote years ago called Conviction versus Mercy. If you haven't read it, it's worth reading. Get it for Kindle for 99 cents off Amazon. I did look to make sure it's still there, and it is. Okay. All right, next thing he tells us about is clean the outside of the platter. If you got a cup that you have food in, and you take it and you wash off the outside real pretty where it looks clean, and you set it up in your cabinet for next time to use it, right? None of you do that. No. The inside is full of cheating and selfishness. You're blind guides, again, he calls them. You're leading people in the wrong direction. Clean the inside, and in the process of cleaning the inside, what you going to do to the outside? You're going to clean it too, right? It's the inside what's important. So clean the inside. The outside becomes clean also. And he uses two things to compare it to. You're like whitewashed tombs. Okay? Here's the pure righteous to men, hypocrisy, lawlessness. Here's a bunch of tombs. Okay? They're all white and pretty outside, fixed up. Pretty box. Scrolls, engraving stuff all over it. What's inside it? Dead man's bones. And you're pretty on the outside, Pharisees, but what's inside? Rotten. The burial vaults of the prophets, you decorate for righteousness. But instead, if we had lived back in the days of our fathers, we would have treated prophets like that. Oh no, we wouldn't have done that. But he said, yeah, you would too. You admit you're the sons of those who killed the prophets, go ahead and act like them. He said, you're snakes and you're children of vipers or snakes. You're the children of those who killed the prophets, and you're as bad as they are. If I'm missing some point here, somebody speak up. Try to get through if I can. Now, these woes are the last. We've already talked about the last public teaching in John. These woes are the last public teaching of Jesus recorded in Matthew. It's the end of Matthew chapter 23, 24, and 25 deal with the destruction of Jerusalem and the judgment, and then it gets in 26 is the death, and etc. So this is the last public teaching in Matthew with this chapter here. All right, foregone things from anybody? At the end of this chapter, after the woes, then he sobs for Jerusalem. Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the one who kills the prophets, he just talked about, stones those who are sent to her. Think about the parables he gave a little earlier about the servants going to get the products from the vineyard. Same thing. How often I want to gather your children together, speaking to Jerusalem, personifying Jerusalem. I want to gather your children together. The hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you're not willing. Your house is going to be left you desolate. You shall see me no more. Till they say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. This is it. As far as what's recorded in Matthew, I'm through teaching. So in the end, he hit them hard. He hit the Sadducees hard. He hit the Pharisees hard. Pharisees, scribes, hypocrites. This is a painting of the destruction of Jerusalem. All right, now we go to Mark and Luke and pick up the points that's not in Matthew. Jesus sat at the temple opposite the treasury. Now, if you remember the pictures I put up the temple before, you have the big outer courts, the court of the Gentiles. Then you go to the first inner court. That's the court of women. That's where the treasury is, as I understand. Of course, you go inside into the court of men. The women couldn't go in there. Gentiles couldn't go inside the court of women at all. And then the women couldn't go into the court of men. And of course, the men couldn't go in where the priest goes. The priest couldn't go where the high priest goes. So it moves up. Many rich people were putting in much into the treasury as Jesus sat and observed them. But the poor widow would put in 2 mites. And I've got somewhere in my notes way back, 1/64th of a day's wages. I remember, I have a note where I got that. But not much. Not much. What did Jesus say about it? She's put in more than anybody else. Why? I've got $1,000, and I put 10 into the treasury. Here's this poor widow that's got 2 pennies to rub together. That's all she's got. She dropped those 2 pennies in. Who put in the most? She put in all she had. Okay? She put in all she had. She gave more than all the rest of them. They gave out of their abundance. Did I hear a lesson anywhere? She put in all her livelihood. So, how much do I give? Do I give from my abundance? Who knows? Lord knows. Lord knows. So, a couple of points to go back and reemphasize here. This one from the Sadducees. You're mistaken. You don't know the scriptures. We can't be caught that way. We've got to know them. That's why we got to teach these children to know the scriptures, know the answers, know where we can find the answers. And then the big thing on the I am is another big point here. And then humility as opposed to the pride, the other one. Do the little things, don't leave off the other things. Maybe easier to do the things we can measure, like a tenth of our paycheck, versus what we can give and we don't measure, mercy, faith, and love, which is easier. Oh, I know I give my 10% of my paycheck or whatever. But it's hard to measure mercy, faith, and love sometimes. The things that we don't see. That's it. I think time's probably up and then some. But thank you for listening.